Hey, this is Dr. Silva. As promised, as alluded to in the last episode in the series, I'm going to talk today about an esoteric OCD symptom, one that if you don't have OCD, you've probably never heard of. I was thinking, what the purpose of this series is, and really, I think what I hope to do is if there are people out there who do suffer from OCD, who are watching videos trying to learn about it, that they will maybe watch videos like this one and take comfort in the fact that the symptoms that they're experiencing are not unique. They're not the only ones that have experienced these, even though nobody talks about them. It's not the hand washing and the counting and the other textbook OCD symptoms that people talk about. And so lest people think that there's something truly wrong with them, or that they are outliers in some way, or that it's an omen, or even not recognizing that these are in fact part of the syndrome that they have. A lot of times people might not even put two and two together and say, oh, this is my OCD at work. And since I suffer from OCD, I've experienced these. And so I just want to talk about and explore there really are no statistics because they are more esoteric. They are lesser known. And so this talk that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to try to make it concise, ironically, because it's about the opposite. It's about not being concise. It is about the compulsion to tell people what's on your mind. You have a thought, or you have a story, you have something relevant to what is being mentioned, and you have this compulsion to make sure that the other person knows about it, to make sure that you express yourself. And again, there's got to be evolutionary significance to this. Even before language, there has to be some evolutionary advantage to communication, even if you're just grunting. But so I haven't figured this one out as to what evolutionary advantage we would have to let other people know exactly what's on our mind beyond just basic communication. But I thought I was the only one. I myself, a seasoned psychiatrist, thought that I was probably the only one that experienced this particular symptom. I'll call it a symptom. Well, that's semantics. It's a symptom if it's disruptive to your life and it upsets you a lot. If it doesn't upset you a lot, it's still an aspect of OCD, but you could argue whether it's a symptom or just a behavior. So I think that's an interesting conversation, but that's another conversation. But I myself thought that I was the only one that did this until I was listening to a memoir. It was actually Paula Poundstone. Some of you may be familiar. She's a comedian, and she describes this very symptom, talking about how one aspect of her OCD is that if she's talking to somebody and they mention something or bring something up that she has an idea, a story, or an experience that is relevant to that, she feels a compulsion to make sure that that person knows about it.
As I've mentioned, perhaps more than once, one of the ways my obsessive-compulsive disorder manifests itself is that I can't stop talking. It's not that I'm not interested in what other people have to say, it's that I can't hear them over the sound of my own voice. Everything that gets said reminds me of something that I absolutely feel I must say. I hijack every conversation, regardless of how little I may know on the subject. There is always some way in which I can relate, and I cannot help telling you about it. It is a deeply humiliating trait. I just can't stop.
For me, it's a tendency to interrupt. I can't wait for them to get to a stopping point so that I can politely share my experience that is super relevant to what they just said. And it's a combination of wanting to be helpful, wanting to make sure that they understand what my experience is and giving them information, but also sometimes when there's really no lesson to be learned, there's no extra added value information for them, it's still just about making sure that they know that this is what I experienced, which is the crazy part. And as I've said in other videos, I use that term with affection, okay? But I can tell you the first time this happened, or the first time I remember it happening, I was very, very young because, again, as I've said in other videos, OCD, like other anxiety spectrum disorders, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, social anxiety, those disorders are lifelong. They're highly, highly genetic, the most genetic of all of the syndromes, according to my experience. And they show up in childhood, unlike the vast majority of other psychiatric syndromes, which are relatively rare in childhood, with the exception of certain childhood syndromes like ADHD and autism. If we're not talking about that subset, everything else, major mood disorder, schizophrenia, other phobias, well, phobias do start in childhood as well. They tend to start early, not necessarily in childhood, but because they're part of that anxiety spectrum syndrome. And so I was very, very young. I'm going to estimate my age at around 9 or 10, possibly younger. And I was talking to my sister. We were in her bedroom, probably the bedroom we shared at the time. We were so little. And we were talking, and she was saying something, and I was waiting for my turn to talk. And I thought of something that was relevant to what we were saying. And I thought, oh, when we get to a stopping point here, I'm going to make sure that I tell her this. And then, because we didn't come to a stopping point soon enough, something else was said by her, and it triggered another idea that, I've got to tell her about that as well. And so I put it in the queue, and then there was something else. And so they were piling up on me. I was starting to feel anxiety about the fact that I needed to remember, not to forget, to tell her about this and about this and about this. These 3 things that I had thought of as we were talking that were relevant, and they were just stories at that point. I mean, we were children. We were counting stories, and I wanted to like, oh yeah, I was thinking about that the other day, and it wasn't that important. But at one point, I knew that there was something wrong. I didn't know that I was having a symptom, certainly. I didn't know I had OCD. What did I know? I was a child. But I knew that there was something wrong. I had the sense that I was having anxiety. And it wasn't high anxiety. But it was this uneasy feeling, this feeling that something was wrong. And I couldn't pinpoint it, but I knew that it had to do with the fact that I had this compulsion to say everything and to not forget. Because if we went the rest of our lives without me communicating this, and she would never have known that I was thinking about it during our conversation. And that was the thought that was abhorrent to me. The idea that we would go the rest of our lives and she would never know. And so I needed a witness. I needed my thought, for my thought and my experience to have validity. By thought, I mean the thought of in that moment, and of wanting to communicate the relevance, and then the experience itself that was relevant, that I was wanting to convey. Those 2 things, it was important for me to have my thought validated by sharing it with someone else. Again, these are not interpretations. This is not an analysis that I was able to make at the time. I was a child. But this is the analysis that I have since made, and that I recognize that what it is wanting my experience to be validated by witnessing it, by having a testimonial, having somebody witness it. And I think it's related to the pleasure that I get when I live vicariously in various situations, whether it be taking someone to a play that I love and having them experience the play and then talking about it later, and somehow my experience of the play is validated because there was somebody else that was there, that I either experienced it vicariously through that person or they witnessed me experiencing it. It is a very crazy thing, and I'm kind of talking about 2 separate things here that I think are related, but just getting back to the need that I felt and the anxiety that I felt in not having her know that what was in my mind and what I had experienced. And so I stopped and I said, and the look on my face was probably I'm sure I had a look of consternation on my face because that's what I was feeling. And I remember the tone of voice that I used, and it was just sort of this helpless, I feel like I need to tell you everything that I'm thinking. I said something along those lines. I feel like I need to tell you everything that I'm thinking. And my little sister, she's 3 years younger than me, she just looked back at me and she said the sweetest thing, which was, then tell me. She was there to listen to me. She couldn't understand why I was so perplexed, and I'm sure she was at a complete loss herself. She doesn't remember even. I've told her about this, but she doesn't remember. And anyway, that was a memory I'll never forget. It was many decades ago. It was evidence that this phenomenon that occurs to me and that occurs to other people, not just me and Paula. I'm sure there are people out there that have experienced it. And so that's something that happens. And I think that and the living vicariously through other people, that's just a shade. It's just an aspect of the same thing. And this last thing that I'm going to talk about, which is the title of this video, which is what I alluded to in the last video, which is just one more thing. Just one more thing. Just let me tell you one more thing. And it is the compulsion to be complete, the anxiety that, maybe I've forgotten something. Let's see, have I thought of everything? I just thought of one more thing that's relevant. And let me just tell you this one more thing. And the way it manifests is a difficulty for other people in terminating conversations and in getting off the phone. We've said goodbye even, and I'll talk to you later, and great. And then I'm like, wait, one more thing. I don't even say one more thing. I'm like, oh yeah, what about this? What about that? What about this? And it goes on and on and on. And then, and there's a realization, at least now there's a realization on my part now that I have better insight. Realization that she's got to cut me off because that's gonna go on all day. It won't go on all day, but it'll go on for a long time. It would go on for several minutes because I have this compulsion to not stop, to not say goodbye and not get off the phone. And I've seen it in a few patients. It's the same phenomenon. We're done with the visit, we're out of time, and we've got to say until next time, but they throw in a question just as I'm about to click off the Zoom. And I answer their question. It's a reasonable question. It is relevant, but then it opens up a little conversation that we really can't have right now because we really are out of time. But I don't like cutting patients off, and so I'll spend a minute addressing that concern because I don't cut my patients off unless I have to. And then we kind of wrap that up, and I again make it clear that my next patient's waiting and I got to go, and that patient will not be able to stop. And I have to assist that patient in stopping by making a very firm boundary saying, okay, we have to stop now. We have to stop. I can't take that questioning anyway. We can't talk about that right now. We'll talk about that next time. Write it down. If there's anything else that you think of that you didn't ask me during this session, during this 20 or 30 minutes that we've had, then I invite them to send me a portal message or a text, or we can address it on the phone. We can do it later, but we can't do it now because I've got somebody else waiting and my clinic has to run on time. And which is another OCD thing, the punctuality. That'll be another thing that I talk about. There's so many symptoms under the OCD umbrella, so much more beyond hand washing, and it's fascinating. And because I've experienced it, I can, I think, describe it in a way, relate it in a way with first person perspective and kind of tie it together because I have analyzed it as a clinician. I've stood back from it. I've analyzed it. Said, what is that about? And for me, the anxiety of, you have to know that other person, the other, has to know what I'm thinking and what I'm thinking about. I've got to communicate it. It is a compulsion to communicate. I haven't quite figured out the evolutionary significance of it. Stay tuned for more esoteric OCD symptoms. If you've got OCD, if you've got one, if you've got a behavior or a thought or a symptom that you do that you think may be related to your OCD that you've never heard anybody else talk about, please share it in the comments section. I think it would be very enlightening. I think we've all done it. We're not that unique. If you're doing something that's kind of weird, that is related to the principles of OCD, symmetry and organization and completeness and validation and these esoteric principles, cleanliness, we know some of the textbook ones, and safety, please share your experiences. Thanks for listening.